Welcome to the Socially Unfiltered podcast,
where we'll be taking you along for our deep dives and doom scrolls through social media, entrepreneurship, and pop culture.
We're your hosts, Lex and Veronica, and together we're looking at everything through an unfiltered lens on the things that shape our everyday lives and society.
So grab a drink and get ready to explore the uncharted territories of online trends, share candid conversations, and uncover the stories behind the headlines.
This is the Socially Unfiltered podcast.
Today. Hopefully we don't bring the mood down too much with this episode.
I know. Buckle up. It's gonna be a tough one. And we just want to give a little disclaimer because today we're doing a little debrief on Quiet on Set, the dark side of kids TV. If you haven't watched it and don't want any spoilers, go watch that. I think we talked about it in like the past couple episodes, but now we've like had enough time for everybody to kind of catch up and watch it. So we figure it's time to do a little debrief, but we also just want to put a trigger warning because this does include sexual abuse, sexual violence. And if any of that is triggering, please don't listen to this episode or proceed with caution at least. And if you or someone you know has been a victim of sexual abuse, you can text the word strength to the crisis text line at 741-741 to be connected to a certified crisis counselor. Just wanted to give that disclaimer, and we're going to get into the episode.
Yes. Thank you for saying all of that. Yeah, definitely heavy topics, but that was actually something I wanted to ask you before we even like go into it, because it was a TikTok that I had seen. I don't remember at this point who or what or when, but how do you feel about like the documentary itself coming out and now like all of these clips are recirculating? Like, do you feel like I saw a bunch of some of the stars saying like it's literally just ripping the Band-Aid off and like putting it all out there again. It's bringing more attention to it. How do you feel about that? Because once I heard them talking about it, I'm like, that does suck, but I just feel like you don't get the same effect of how fucked up it all was if you don't see it.
Right. I feel like you have to, for everybody else, I guess, to understand it too on such a big platform, because people have been like speaking out, like the girl from Zoe 101, is her name Alexa? She's been speaking out, and like other Jeanette McCurdy has spoken out before about it. But I feel like a big platform like Netflix picking this up is like getting that out there to so many more people. And it sucks they have to relive this, but like I'm sure they've relived this too in like therapy all the time. And it's just, I think it's sad and it's awful that they have to relive this, but it's also like putting that out there now for everybody else to realize what was going on. Because I feel like, I mean, we knew about the Dan Schneider stuff, but I had no idea about so many other of the things that went on, like the working conditions and the predators that are all
I
working.
thought we knew everything. Like, I know there's always more to know, but there was a lot in this that I was like, "Ooh."
Like the
and
Drake,
there were a lot
nobody knew about Drake Bell. Like it's
no. And like
crazy.
there were also even like a lot of jokes that like they would replay, and I'm like, oh my God, like I didn't even realize how bad that was. Or like when they start showing like context, like her with like Amanda Bynes with the baby, like it was all just like very strange once you kind of heard like some more context from everything. Like, I don't know. It's again, I never think we know everything, but like I thought we knew a significant amount about everything. Because I don't want to like jump ahead, but even like with there was like a public court case with Drake, like, and it was all very much like swept under the rug. It was very hidden. Like it definitely wasn't something that I think a lot of people knew was happening at the time. So just like how much was happening that we didn't know until this. I completely agree with you. Like, I think it's good to get the story out there. And obviously, I think the visuals of showing like the fucked up jokes and like the weird, creepy stuff he would focus on, like, I just don't think it would have given the same effect if they didn't show all of that. So I'm glad they did. But it's obviously got to be like very traumatic to go through and like see all of that again or talk about it again. But yeah, it started as the 4 episodes that we knew about, and then they surprised us with a 5th one, and it was just Drake going more in depth about everything.
I was like sick, just like nauseous the entire time watching that and, like, knowing that so many of them went through this. I even put on our notes, like, our consumption as kids, like, because we loved these shows, these were, like, nostalgia for us, like, our consumption was at the expense of these children and their exploitation, and that makes, like, me feel guilty for loving those shows so much, and, like, even now
Mhm.
looking back, I'm like, "Oh my god, I feel so guilty for watching that or not knowing," and, like, I don't know, being
Mhm.
a kid, and it's just sick, like, it's so sick that our happiness was at the expense of, like, the exploitation of these children, and it's so
Mhm.
sad, like, breaks my heart.
Yeah, it's very sad, and when I was kind of digging around about some of this when I was watching it, I had no idea about this. Do you know the show Ren and Stimpy? The, like, animated show that was on Nickelodeon? It's, like, the 2 little, like, characters. It was always really weird, like, it was very like, I never liked it. If anybody listening knows about Ren and Stimpy, like, it was just a very weird show on Nickelodeon, in my opinion, and the creator of that, there's a documentary about him. It's called Happy, Happy, Joy, Joy, about how he had a bunch of, like, underage victims for, like, in his personal life and people that were working for him at Nickelodeon, so, like, it's also crazy to see that this wasn't just, like, the live action shows with, like, actual
Yeah,
people, like, this was also happening at, like, the animated shows, like, it just, I think, shows that it was a problem, like, so much more than just
yeah,
with Dan Schneider and, like, his shows, it was literally everywhere, and that's, like,
mhm,
alarming, and I think it also, like, very much says something that almost all of the people that were asked the question in the documentary if they would let their kids go into, like, acting or showbiz, they all said no. Like,
yep,
I think that very much, or most of them said no. I think that, like, very much speaks to something.
yeah, and I think the craziest part too is, like, so we know Dan Schneider, he obviously has, like, a ton of allegations and all these things, but he wasn't a convicted actual, like, felon, or
Mhm,
there's been, like, talk about the Amanda Bynes and, like, her being pregnant with his baby or whatever, but nothing has actually come out about that specifically. Like, I think he had all of this power to be able to put it into his shows and
mhm,
literally create whatever he wanted for his own, like, gain and sexual gain or whatever the hell he was doing. But
mhm,
I think, like, all of the other actual sex offenders, like, walking amongst us that were
mhm,
convicted, they all didn't have the power Dan had, and I think what they did was, like, in a way, giving them the power within this network, like, all of them. So, Ezel, I don't know ho if I'm even pronouncing it right, and I don't give a fuck because fuck him. Ezel Channel, like, he was convicted of molesting a child at Nickelodeon.
mhm,
Brian Peck, raping a child on Drake Bell, now that we know, on set. Marty Weiss, raping a client. Jason Handy, convicted pedophile. Dan Schneider,
mhm,
like, inappropriate behavior, sexual harassment, but there wasn't an actual conviction of anything that we know about. But it's just
mhm,
the fact that, like, there were so many sex offenders working on these shows
mhm,
and continued to go on working on these shows. And did you see the craziest part about, Dan Schneider is, like, really good friends with the owner of, Paramount. Like, that's how he was kept on all these shows and, like, kept making more because he had a friend. Like, that is how they get away with this shit. They keep
mhm.
friends in higher places.
Yeah, knowing the right
How they
people,
were,
for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, if
how
the
they
right
kept
people
getting rewarded.
know. Mhm. I mean, and that goes for, like, literally everything. I mean, even
Everything.
the Karen Reed case in Boston that you
Mhm.
sent me, and now I can't stop getting TikToks about, like,
Dude,
that's all about knowing the right people in your town. The Micah Miller
it
case was
goes
happening
deep.
here. Yeah, like, it just it's all about who you know. I mean, the Murdoch stuff that happened here, like, that was all about who you know, like,
Yeah.
it's everywhere, and it's very scary, and it also, I don't remember the specifics or names or any of this, so, like, please correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, don't a lot of them still actively work? Like, didn't a lot one
Yes.
of them went, yeah, like, they still actively work, like,
Mhm.
around kids, and, like, some of them went to Disney and, like,
Yeah.
are still actively over there.
Yep.
It's mhm,
Yeah, it's, like, still, and Nickelodeon, it's just such a shame to see, like, everything that they responded to of just being, like, it's so fucking surface level and not even touching on any part of it, like, they just
Mhm,
don't want any part of it, and it does not sound like anything is actually changing or happening. I
mhm.
mean, I don't know, I haven't done, like, the actual, like,
Right.
research into it, of, like, what's going on with child stars now, but I can assume that this isn't hopefully still happening after this, but again, like, the fact that there are just all these predators and sex offenders that are just working on these sets still and went on
Mhm.
to work on multiple sets of, like, more
Well, that's
shows,
what's
and it's
scary about it is, like, to say, like, yeah, like, I do really hope that this stuff isn't still happening now. I
yeah,
think there obviously have been a lot of things that have got, like, laws and stuff that have gone into place to prevent a lot of this from happening, but I think it does like, it's just fucked up to think about, like, there are parents that literally shove their kids into this industry. Like, there are still people, like, even if there are laws, like, there's always going to be, like, the parents and guardians that are supposed to be there to protect the kids. I mean, even some of the
yeah,
kids that parents did have their best interest, like, still ended up trusting these people to, like, let the kids go, like, to another set with them for a little while, and, like, even all of the Drake stuff, like, his dad said from day 1, like, he was like, "This is weird, I don't ever want my kid
yeah,
alone with him," and then they had a way of, like, manipulating their way to get him out of the picture,
yes,
and then his mom was very like, "Oh, yeah, it's fine, he can drive him home," like, "Oh, he can spend the
mhm,
night there." Like, I think there's always just gonna be, like, even if and that's what's sad, and that's why, like, I
yeah,
really think I'd teeter the edge at this point of, like, whether I think children should be, like, in movies or TV at all, and the
yeah,
internet. Like, I literally think children should just, like but then that sucks because I don't want them to have to like that not that I think this would ever take, like, importance over it, but, like, there's a lot of movies and TV shows that can't be made if kids aren't
right,
allowed
yeah,
in that stuff, and that sucks to, like, take the experience away from them. Because
yeah,
also hearing Drake Bell talk say his first name like we're best friends, but, like, hearing him talk about, like
our guy
I
Drake,
mean, this was never my dream, so I don't understand it, but I feel like I've
yeah,
experienced a lot of, like, goal moments, but, like, he
yeah,
said, like, it was the happiest moments of his life, like, it's all he ever dreams about, it's all they ever
mhm,
wanted to do, so I also hate to take that experience away from kids, but it
yeah,
obviously just proves, like I mean, this stuff was happening in the '90s, like, this isn't brand new, it, like,
right,
is a continuous pattern that when kids are in a place of being directed around by adults, like, it's usually weird, and it shouldn't be weird, like, it should not be weird that, like, Brian Peck and Dan Schneider wanted to, like, help guide these kids through this fucked up industry, like, that
mhm,
shouldn't be the fucked up part, but it's feels like it's always taken farther and becomes inappropriate, and at that point, like, I think it is just, like, a bunch of one bad apple, like, spoils all of them, like, they
mhm,
all get that right taken away to work with children, like, there just should be no children involved in movies and TV, I think that's a sad solution to everything.
yeah, it is sad,
'Cause,
and
like
especially, like, in um the last 5th surprise episode, I feel like that one was, like, very much, like, processing and, like, a therapy session for all of them, like, Leon or was it Leon or was it no, Brian, and Giovanni went came and, like, sat down, and
Mhm.
I had no idea that, like, Brian's mother, like, she was way too vocal on set, and, like, she was speaking up, and that's what got him
That's what
fired
was
from
so
set, but
sad.
she saved him, like, literally
Mhm.
saved him from probably something worse happening to him on set,
Mhm.
but I had no idea that because of that, they had no relationship up until that episode, and, like,
Yeah,
it
that's
just was like I
crazy.
almost cried, like, seeing them just,
Me
like,
too.
reconnect, and, like, I feel
Mhm.
like it was just healing so
Yeah.
many people, like, in that last
Mhm.
episode. I wish they would do more of these, honestly, and, like, the sit
Yes.
downs and, like 'cause it's crazy, but she was such a good parent, I think, for doing
Mhm.
that. In the moment, like, it sucks because that was his dream, and
Mhm.
literally, she was like, "He wasn't the same after that ever again." Like,
Mhm.
we grew apart, and
Yeah.
it sucks they lost all those years together because of something like that. It was just
Mhm.
so sad to see that.
Yeah. It's crazy that it was the episode of the documentary that, like,
Mhm.
brought them back together. 'Cause
Yeah.
I also was thinking about that, not that this really has anything to do with anything, but, like, I would love to know the timeline of that because like, did they see it on TV when everybody else did, and then they actually filmed that between them, like, within the few weeks before we saw that surprise episode? Or, like, did they pre-screen this to them and, like, this was actually a few months ago? Like, I'm so curious
Mhm.
what the time
Yeah.
like, did they this happen overnight and they wrote in and they were like, "Oh my god, we just had this moment," like
Yeah.
and they were like, "Oh my god, let's add it into the show." Like, I'm so curious how
I know.
that happened just because it is crazy. Like, I can't believe they both, like, sat with this, like, I don't know if hatred is the right word for each
Yeah.
other, but, like, this, like, bitterness about the situation, and, like,
Yeah.
to be able it obviously, it seems like it was very, like, freeing, or, like, a
Mm,
weight lifted off of their chest to be able to talk about it. Did
yeah.
you watch anything about the interview that Dan Schneider put out the day
Yeah.
after everything came out?
Fucking piece of shit.
Yeah, he's the worst. I
I
didn't
don't know
watch the whole
why
thing.
I don't really even understand why Woogie would give him, like, that platform, especially considering, like, how
Mm-mm.
blatantly racist his shows were and how, like,
Right.
Brian and Leon both came and talked about, like, the
Mhm.
racism that was occurring on set, and it's like, it's
They
just like
couldn't have been the only
he's like,
Black people
"Well, one
experiencing
one
the
of my good
racism.
shows was Kenan and Kel, like, what are you talking
Mhm.
about?" And it's like, that proves nothing to the point of, like, how you treated your actors on set,
Right.
especially
He's talking
ones
about
of color.
2 people from one show
Yes.
from the '90s, not
Right.
anything that happened after that. Wait, so speaking of him talking to this person and, like, there obviously being, like, certain people who maybe don't think he was as bad as a lot of other people do, why do you think like, I know what I think, but, like, why do you think, like, Josh Peck and Miranda Cosgrove, like, why do you think there are certain people that won't talk about it at all? Like, do you think it's that they genuinely didn't experience the same thing, like, he played favorites, or do you think, like, there may have been, like, a money settlement to, like, not talk about? Do you think like, what do you think? Because that's what I think.
Yeah.
I think there's
I
money
think for
involved.
sure there has to be money involved,
I
especially
do too.
Ariana Grande, especially
Hun
Ariana
Yeah.
Grande. The shit
Mhm.
he has made her do, like,
Mhm.
squeezing the potato, pouring water on herself, like, the
Yeah.
foot stuff. I mean, Nickelodeon's one of the fucking logos was a foot. Like,
Mhm.
there was so much that Ariana Grande was doing, and Victoria
Mhm.
Justice. I saw Victoria Justice came out a little bit about, like, "Yeah, I
Mhm.
definitely didn't experience like that, but I experienced, like,
Yeah, I saw her
unfair
saying that, and I'm like,
treatment."
"But even that, I don't believe you saying that."
No.
Like, I just it's hard to believe that some experienced it
Yeah.
to a
Or didn't
crazy
see it, like,
extreme.
obviously, they
Yeah.
pictured it and saw it on set, like not pictured it, they, like, actually saw with their own
Mhm.
eyes on set, but I agree, I think there was some type of, like, hush-hush settlement,
Favoritism.
NDA,
Mhm.
like, something has to have been unless they really just don't wanna insert themselves and have that
Right.
attention on themselves, but I know Drake
I
even
think
said he's like,
that's a
"Leave Josh alone, like, don't,
mm,
like, come after him or whatever," but I think
mhm.
Josh didn't really treat him that well either.
Well, that yeah, that was something else that I had written down, and I meant to, like, look this up or, like, maybe know the answer to this instead of asking, but do we know where Drake like, I know in the 5th episode, like, the surprise one that came out, he said, like, "Oh, we've talked, like, everything is fine," but, like, they were very, like, wasn't, like, Josh talking about like or, like, Josh didn't invite Drake to his wedding,
Yes.
so Drake was, like, very upset about that and, like, talking a bunch of shit about like, they haven't always been good, and, like, they
Mhm.
might have talked about this in that episode, and I'm just not remembering it because I literally
Yeah.
watched it 2 months ago, but
I
like,
think he
did they
said like, he 'cause Josh
had
was, like,
reached
doing some
out?
interview and was like, "Oh, we, like, haven't talked in, like, months, years," or whatever he said, and Drake was like, "We literally texted, like, that day or
Yeah,
the other day, like, what are you talking" or, like,
yeah,
pulled it up and was like, "We were talking and, like, everything was
mhm.
good, and we were talking about the wedding, whatever." I just yeah, I think something sketchy was happening with
Do you
Josh, and
think
I
Josh Peck is one of the people that accepted money to, like, not talk about it, and it puts him in this weird place of, like, he is not
yeah,
supporting Drake, but he can't, like
yeah.
because that's what I feel like is
I
happening. Not
also
to, like,
feel like
build
that
conspiracies or anything, but it's just
allegedly
weird.
allegedly, yeah.
Yeah, allegedly.
Allegedly,
It's just it's weird that there are so many that, like, will speak out about it and, like, had this experience, and there's
yeah.
like, if it's that you don't wanna talk about it because it, like, is too traumatic and, like, you just don't wanna go through it, I think that's one thing, but it
Mhm.
does seem I don't know, and then, like, even like, it sucks because I love have you seen, like, Miranda Cosgrove, like, currently? Like, any of her, like, TikToks or, like, clips of her interviews on podcasts, like, she's so funny and she's so sweet, like, she's telling this story about how her tour bus, like, slid on ice and, like, flipped over, and she's like, like, laughing about it, like, she's, like, just doesn't find anything, like, bad in life. She, like,
Huh.
talks about how somebody was trying to, like, break into her house, and she just was like, like, I'm like Are you genuinely just somebody who, like, doesn't wanna look back on that time period because 'cause you're trying to be this, like, super positive person now? Or, like,
Mhm.
it's so
Or that's
weird because
her
I
way
also
of
am like, I
responding to trauma with humor or
yes.
brushing it off like it's not
Or
serious.
did you take the
But
hush money and you just aren't allowed to talk about it? Because I don't want that to be
yeah.
the case because I like her. But
Yeah.
it's just weird. I don't know, some of it is very strange, just
Yeah.
who will talk about it and who won't. It's hard for me to believe there's not, like, bribery. I was
Yeah.
like, "It's gotta expire soon, right?"
I really
Like,
wish that, like, Amanda Bynes would speak up because I think she went through absolute hell, and I think the way
Mhm,
that like, with her time spent with Dan, I think it truly led her to, like, all of this, and I think
mhm,
the same thing with Jeanette McCurdy, like, I think everything led
mhm,
her, but I feel like it's really hard to touch on, like, Amanda's story just because she hasn't come out and said anything, so I don't wanna, like,
mhm.
talk about her story because I don't know, like, we don't know anything. That
Right,
sh how she feels or what she went through, like, we just know, like, the surface level that they all touched on with Amanda and, like, obviously the weird fucking scenes he did with the hot tub
right.
with her and, like, I don't just
Mhm,
weird shit, and I feel like she definitely was, like, the favorite and spent so much time I mean, she
mhm,
got her own show because of him.
mhm.
I just feel like she went through a lot of shit, and I just wish she would speak up about it.
See, and that's what's, like, weird to me is, like, it it's not all of them, like, I don't wanna say this like it's a concrete fact, but, like, Josh was a leading person in a show, won't talk
Yeah,
about it. Ariana Grande, leading person in a show, won't talk about it. Miranda Cosgrove won't talk about it. Like, it's again, I can see how it could be, like, a favoritism thing, like, maybe these
yeah,
people were the favorites and they got the show and didn't experience any of this, but it also kinda makes sense that it would be the ones
mhm,
that got the most aren't allowed to
right.
talk about it.
Like, I think
So
Drake having, like, a show too, like, Drake and Josh
yeah.
after being on the Amanda Show is very telling of, like,
Mhm.
he just was continuously being abused, but then like, reaped the benefits because he was like, "Oh, I'm with this person, and they're, like, helping me in my career." He even said it. He's like, "Well,
Mhm.
I just figured, like, this is what I've wanted to do for so long, and, like, I can't give up because it's my dream, and, like, this must just be
Mhm.
normal." Like, I bet it was just like, "Oh, it's like this is just my life if I want to succeed," and that's so fucking
Right.
sad. And I
Yeah, it's so sad.
also like those 41 letters that they wrote, all those
I
41
had that written
people.
down too.
Oh,
I
what was her name? What's the name of the woman that wrote the, letter?
oh,
It was like
um,
Karen woman. I'm trying to look it up. Kimmy Robertson, yeah, so I think
mhm,
her letter was actually the fucking worst, and I think what's even more sick after that is that she went against this fucking child and wrote this letter and then
mhm,
showed up in a scene on his fucking show that they had
mhm,
to do together after that. I
mhm,
think that is, like, so fucking wrong, and it's like and then those 2 guys that also wrote letters and went on their podcast and were like, "Oh, we didn't know back then."
mhm,
Fucking save it. You've had so many years to apologize, call Drake,
and you
write
don't
him a
until you're
fucking letter,
called out
and you
for
don't
it.
until you're called out, and I truly
Mhm.
think they just did it because they were getting the heat, but I don't
If it never
understand
came out it was
why.
them, they would have never said anything
Oh,
about it.
never. No, and these 41 people should especially fucking James Marsden, like, all these big people that wrote these letters, like, they should be so fucking ashamed of themselves. Like, and I want them to be writing letters to Drake and calling him and apologizing, like, where is that? Where is that energy?
I'm just curious who the all 41 people were. It's just crazy how much of it was, like, public and, like, going on and just not questioned, and it's the same as, like, Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis, like, when they got caught or kind of exposed for writing the letter about the Danny guy, like, it these people don't feel bad until they're caught
Mhm.
and try to use the excuse of, like, "Oh, it was different back then," like, "Oh, we didn't know," but I really think a lot of people, especially in Hollywood, have, like, selective amnesia or something where they just, like, choose to remember things a certain
Me
way, and I also think too many people are very much like, "Oh, well, he wasn't like that to me." Like, "He didn't do that to
yeah,
me, I never saw that." Like, just
yeah,
because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening.
yeah, like, and Drake said there's been no apology from
Mhm.
anybody.
That's the most fucked up part. Like, I act not that I think I would ever understand or know, obviously, what Drake is feeling or experiencing, but I think it would be huge for some of these people to say sorry because I do get how some of them, like, I don't know, maybe at the time were manipulated into thinking they weren't harming somebody in the way that they were with these letters, but, like, I think it would go a long way for some of them to, like, suck it up and call themselves
Mhm.
out. Like, I would respect somebody more for bringing it to the attention of their audience than letting it be found out through, like, the documentary.
Yeah, and he's like, "I learned that later there were multiple people that supported him that went on to work on my show." Like, that
Mhm.
is I cannot even imagine having to work with people on your show after, like, finding out that they
Right, and to know like, yeah, like,
He's
a
like, "I worked with these
knowing
people every day, and I thought they were my friends. They were
yeah.
people in a position of power. They were my bosses, directors, producers. I had no idea that for 4 years I was working alongside people who supported him and probably in the back of their mind were thinking of me in certain ways, and I thought they were my friends." Like, oh, it just, like, breaks my heart.
Okay, wait, so I had this written down in my notes, and I couldn't remember if this actually came from the documentary, if this was something that I found in my Reddit sleuthing. When they talk about how Drake had a girlfriend at the time that this was happening, and the girlfriend's mom,
Mhm.
like, sensed something wasn't right.
Yeah.
Was it in the documentary or is this rumored
That was
that
in
it
the
was
documentary, but they didn't say who it was.
so supposedly it was Fifi Dobson, and she has a song that came out called Man Meets Boy or Boy Meets Man, and it
Yeah,
came out in 2012, which would have been, like, around the time that a lot of this was
yeah,
happening. So I think it would be crazy if it was her. That's very allegedly. That definitely came from Reddit if it did not come to they talked about a girlfriend and the mom. I
right.
remember that for sure from the documentary, but I
But
couldn't
the
remember if
timeline of, like, who he was dating, I think
mhm,
people, like, figured out
put
was
together.
her. Yeah,
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
however and wasn't she in his music video or he was in her music video,
Yeah,
right?
something along those lines. They were both doing things like that at that
Yeah,
time. I mean, thank God for her mom, like, if that is thank God for
yeah.
whoever's mom it was that called. Because I mean, that is crazy to me that how did his mom not see an issue with, like,
Mhm.
Brian Peck calling her teenage son multiple times and, like, giving him shit about hanging out with his girlfriend instead of it? Like, how did it take the girlfriend's mom?
His mom is frustrates the shit out of me, but he even said, like, "They're good now," and that he's like, "Don't come at my
Mhm.
mom," and, "Okay, we won't," but, like, I get very sad about, like, the dad because the dad was doing
Yeah.
everything he could to protect him from Brian Peck, and, like,
Mhm.
he never was like, "Don't let him be alone with him," like, he knew the vibes were
Mhm.
not good, and then I think just abusers, like, they manipulate the situation, they turned him
Mhm.
against his dad. As a young kid, it's like, yeah, my dad is trying to, like, get in the way of my career. It's like,
Mhm.
you're young and you see this person that's trying to make you successful, but then your dad's like, "No, I don't want you to be with him." It's like, I think as a young
Right.
kid, it's like, "Oh, why are you against"
Devastating.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
devastating. So he's like,
You're
"Okay,
ruining
I'm
my
gonna do
life.
it."
Yeah.
Mhm. And I
Yep.
think it's really sad that that is what happens with a lot of abusers, like, they turn you
Mhm.
against everybody to get their way, and I feel
Mm.
like it was, like, almost inevitable. It's like if it wasn't his dad, it would have been his mom, and I think he would have exiled his mom too if he had to get what he wanted. Like, it's
Mhm.
truly sick that like, the extent that he went to. He was going to all of Drake's shows, like, it's so
Yeah, that's so weird, and, like, I get and that's what sucks about that industry, and I mean, again, I'm not really speaking on this from experience, I just feel like I have a weird fascination with, like, pop culture, so I kind of understand and, like, even just looking at, for example, look at Selena Gomez's show Only Murders in the Building. It's her and 2 old men.
Yeah,
Like, that wouldn't be weird if Selena Gomez and these 2 old men, like, went out to dinner after they got done filming one day, you know what I
like they
mean? So,
do.
like right, so I get
Mhm.
why there is a world where it's not weird that, like, a teenage boy is maybe close with an adult man or an adult woman because you almost become, like, what should be a family almost,
Yeah.
like, in that environment. Obviously, I think there are people, like, a
Mhm.
lot of the people that this documentary talked about that take advantage of that,
Yeah.
but it's yeah, it's definitely just I don't know, and I would never want to, like, encourage anybody to, like, hold a grudge, and I'm glad that they could get past it, but it's
Yeah.
shocking to me that he forgave his mom, I
Mhm.
guess, like, in general. I was gonna say as fast as he did, but, like, who's to say what that timeline was? So,
Yeah.
I don't know, I think it's crazy in general. It's, that's, like, a huge
Yeah.
Forgiveness? I don't know, but then again, I don't know, I always go back to this, like, thing where it's like your parents are living life for the first time right now too. So, like, try not to, like, get as mad at them for stuff, but it's
And it's like
I don't know.
adults and, like, your fucking acting coach shouldn't be doing that regardless,
Mhm.
period. Like, no matter if parents or not are in the picture, like, that should not be
Mhm.
happening ever.
Right, like, there
Like,
shouldn't be anything for parents to have to worry about,
no,
but, like, unfortunately, there
but
is.
yeah, there's a lot for parents to worry about, especially now. Like, it's just so
Mhm.
scary. I mean, even, what's it called? Um, Full House, like, I think there was a lot that happened too with, like, all of the actors, all the men on
Mhm.
that show, they were very inappropriate, especially
Mhm.
to Mary-Kate and Ashley, and
Mhm.
that can be, like, a whole separate deep dive too, but there's been,
Mhm.
like, so much that has also come out about that, that it's, like, not
Mhm.
just these Nickelodeon shows, it's, like, there's fucking gross predators all around in every show, in real life, at your job, like, they're everywhere, in
No,
your
literally,
church,
there
in the fucking mall, like, the closest people to you. It's scary. It's very scary.
Wait, okay, so I had to just look this up. It has nothing to do with kids and child predators, but just, like, other fucked up shit that's happened on, like, kid shows. Do you remember when it, like, came out that Mr. Mosby from Sweet Life killed somebody?
Yeah.
Like, he murdered somebody, and then they let him be on the like, that's crazy to me. I mean, it was, like, drunk driving. It's not like he, like, you know, stabbed somebody to death because he was mad, which I think is just as
Yeah.
fucked up, but
Yeah.
that's yeah. There's, like, very there's people that shouldn't be around, like, children and in entertainment industry like this that
No.
I don't know. Even, like, have you ever, like, dove into, like, Drew Barrymore or, like, any of her stuff, like, when she was a kid? Her
No.
story is very fucked up. There's, like, a lot of documentaries about her. Yeah, she, like, basically was shoved into, like, the entertainment industry as a small child. She literally was hanging out with, like, adult, like, grown men, like, going to parties, like, by the time she was 9, she was routinely drinking alcohol. It was, like, by 12, she had tried coke for the first time. Like, she
Jesus.
literally was yeah, and, like, had, like, she went to, like, rehab and everything. Like, Drew you should find,
Wow.
like, a 60-second recap of, like, Drew Barrymore's story because it's
Yeah.
very similar and happened 20, 30 years before any of this happened, so it's again, not new.
No.
It's
Oh, yeah, I feel
sad.
like every fucking child actor has gone through some sort of abuse, harassment, like, I think it's
Mhm,
very rare that you go untouched in Hollywood. There's
mhm,
actually probably, like, 1% chance that you do, I think.
mhm,
And just because they are not speaking out on it doesn't mean nothing happened, so
mhm,
I just think, yeah, it's scary, and I would
and it's
never
sad too
allow my
because it's
child
like
to go into it.
I know. Well, and that's I was just gonna not to, like, fully transition the conversation, but, like, it's why I think we're so, like, sticklers about, like, children being on social media. Like, it I think seems like it's a more closely monitored experience for your children to, like, go into some sort of, like, entertainment field, you know what I mean? Like, I think it people
Mhm.
think of, "Okay, well, it's obviously more monitored if I'm the one doing the content and posting it," but it's not so much like the conditions, it's, like, what people are doing with that content afterwards. Like, this is what actually made me wanna bring it up. So, have you seen the trend that's going around right now, and it takes a picture and, like, all you have to do is put the picture in, and it makes the person, like, start dancing, and everybody's like, "Oh, I asked my boyfriend for a full body picture, and this is why," and, like, it shows them like, it literally is a CapCut template now that, like, you can upload a full body
Yeah.
picture of somebody, and it's, like, creepy. Obviously not 100%, like, realistic looking, but, like, it literally takes one photo of somebody to start manipulating it and, like, green screening things in, like,
Well, I mean,
it's
there's
not
been
always
so many filters, it's, like, nothing
Mhm,
new, like, there's so many
mhm,
filters, there's so many, like, things you can put yourself into, AI,
mhm,
like, literally, you could make whatever you want as long as you have a
mhm.
photo of somebody. It's
Yeah, I
crazy.
just think there's yeah, a lot of people, like, look at TikTok that was my ping-ponging brain way of going from, like I think a lot of people look at TikTok as, like, "Oh, my kid can still kind of go into, like, the entertainment," and this is going for, like, the people who literally push their kids into it, like the LeBrant family, like, I can't fucking
Mhm.
stand them. Like, I can't stand how children's births are, like, pieces of content, like, it's just sick
Yep.
to me, but yeah, I think a lot of people look at it as like, "Oh, well, we're controlling, like, what gets filmed and what gets published, and it lets my kids still experience, like, maybe a little bit of, like, the entertainment industry," but it's also, like, what the fucked up people of the world do with those things after you publish them that I think are very
Yep.
scary.
Yep.
Like, it's just hiding everywhere, and that's why, again, to come full circle, I'm very much teetering on the edge right now of saying that I don't think kids should be in movies or TV or on the internet at all,
Mhm.
as dramatic as that is.
Well, we saw Mom Uncharted posted a video, and she literally this is, like, the best analogy, I think. She was like, "If as a parent, like, if you knew that there were predators or, like, rapists at the playground, they're not touching your kids, they're not talking to them, they're just sitting there watching, like, would you feel safe or okay taking your
Mhm.
child to that playground and just, like, having them play and be in front of these people?" The answer is probably no.
Absolutely not.
But yet you put them online knowing that there are those people that can watch it online. It's the same fucking thing. Online is just a bigger fucking playground. Like, it's
Mhm.
the same exact thing when you're putting them online.
Yep.
Anybody can watch it, take it, do whatever they want with it. Just because you don't see them doesn't mean that they're not doing it. So,
Mhm.
I just thought that was a perfect analogy because, like, who in their right mind would ever go to a playground and let their child play in front of those people?
It's an amazing point. I love Mom Uncharted.
Yeah.
Like, she, I think, says things in a very, like, factual way and shows specific things to
Mhm.
back them up and isn't just, like, shit talking parents
Yeah.
for putting their kids online. And when you put it that way, like, it's a very simple answer, I think, for a lot of people,
Mhm.
which is what makes me so sad when I see the parents that, like, are very I don't know exactly how to say what I mean to say. They're like, "Oh, it's fine." Like, "Oh, those people won't watch my content." Like, it makes me
Mhm.
very sad to see some people who are, like, a little naive to it or, like, oblivious to, like, how bad it can actually be. Because I also kinda hate being that person that, like, does go right to, like, worst case scenario, because I don't want to, like, think that of every person on the internet, but
Yeah.
when you put it that way, if you knew that the potential is there, why would you even put it out there? And going back to, again, full circle, what we said in the beginning, it's not always strangers on the internet. It's people that you know, friends, family,
Yes.
relatives. Like, it's yeah, just
Actually,
the
more
older.
often than not, people
Mhm. Yeah.
like, very much more often than not, people you know. But
Mhm.
I think it's also weird, like, the same thing, the way Dan Schneider was portraying these children on these shows, like, as a kid, you didn't think anything of it, but as an adult now watching, you're like, "How did no adult think anything of
Mhm.
these, like, the remarks that are being made and, like, the foot fetishes and just
Mhm.
what they were saying in these shows as kids you don't understand, but, like, why did the parents not? Why did the adults not on set?
Mhm.
It's just like it went through so many people and over so many people's heads that they just didn't say
Mhm.
anything, and I think it's, like, so fucking
Mhm.
weird that nothing was said. But I feel like we
Mhm.
also didn't touch on, like, the working conditions, I think for the 2 women that
Yeah.
spoke up with Dan Schneider, I think
Mhm.
that was in episode 1, and I think that's also very prominent of, like, they
It
went
wasn't
through
just
yeah, it wasn't just, like, kids being
it was Dan's weird,
harassed
like,
and
power trip.
yes, it was such a
Mhm.
power trip, those poor women, and I forget
Mhm.
I didn't look up their names, I want to say their names, though. Oh, Christy Stratton and Jenny Kilgen, so they're the 2 writers former writers on the Amanda Show. Yeah, misconduct, discrimination, they had to share a salary. 2 women
Mhm.
had to share a salary. I remember one of them was even saying how he w like, one time on set was like, "Oh, $300 to whoever eats these 2 tubs of ice cream." And she was like,
Mm.
"I'll do it." And she did it, and he never paid her. And then he,
Mhm.
like, said something else, like, 30 bucks for something else, and she was like, "Oh, should I add it to my tab?" Like, being funny, and he, like, lost his mind on
Yeah,
her.
got mad.
Yeah, like, was requesting massages from them
Yeah,
and
the massage thing is weird. Like, I don't think anybody should ever be, like, touching like that, I don't think.
no, like, he made so many blatant sexual, like, innuendos and made them, like,
Mhm.
perform things, and it's just it was
Weird
awful. I
choices.
feel so bad for them, and He even,
Mhm.
like, said, like, "Oh, women aren't funny," or something like that to them while they were working.
Right, and I'm like, "Okay, but you hired both of them.
Mhm.
So, do you think they're funny or do you not?"
It's just to look like they are inclusive, which I think was
Right.
exactly why there was so much racism, like, he was trying to look
Mhm.
inclusive and he wasn't.
Right, and he refers back to the one show that made it look like, "Oh, how could there have
Mhm.
been racism?" Like,
Yeah.
because there was a lot that happened outside of that one show,
Mhm.
and I think it's very telling that there were fewer and fewer Black people in these casts as
Yeah.
time went on.
Yeah.
Like,
And I
I
mean,
don't
we didn't
remember there
hear
being
sorry, go ahead.
Wait, what?
I said, I don't think we heard from Keenan and Kel, like, what
Mm-mm.
went on in their show, so you don't actually know. I would love to see
Speak up.
more, like, for them to put out more and for more
Mhm.
actors to, like, come forward because the more conversation that's created around it, like, the harder it's gonna be for these fucking people to get
Mhm.
away with it, so
Yeah.
I really hope they do make more of these, but I think it's, like, we're all just so fucking sad, and I just,
Mm.
like, feel so guilty that these shows brought us, like, so much happiness
I
and,
know that I
you
enjoyed
know
watching these. I'm like, "Oh my
Yes.
god, I literally wish I never
Yeah,
never
we
watched
were
any of these."
no, fed into Dan's power
Weird, like,
and money.
obsession. Mhm.
Yeah, and his obsessions, and it's really sad, but, like, we were kids, we had no
Mhm.
idea.
Yeah. And I
Crazy.
think we even said this, like, on the first episode, like, these shows were something, like, my mom would see I was watching it, and she'd be like, "Oh my god, this show's so annoying," and, like, not even pay attention to it because they did make the characters, like, very annoying, and, like,
Mhm.
adults a lot of the time didn't find it funny, so they just
Yeah.
didn't pay attention to it. So it's very again, nothing against, like, our parents, but, like, it's fucked up that the shows were designed that way. Like, I
Yeah.
think they intentionally used, like, annoying character like, looking back now, like, The Amanda Show, like, some of those skits are so fucking annoying, I don't even find them funny anymore, like,
Yeah.
but at the time, you're, like, 10 and you're
Yes.
like, "Oh my god, this is the funniest thing I've literally ever seen in my life," and your parents are
Mhm.
like, "Okay." That's really annoying, and now you as an adult are like, "Oh, oops, maybe
Yeah.
I shouldn't have been watching that."
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot
Mhm.
of parents didn't let their kids watch like, some parents that were, like, actually strict about like, I know there's, like,
Mhm.
some parents who didn't allow their kids to watch SpongeBob and, like,
Oh, yeah, I had lots of
just
friends who weren't allowed to watch, like,
same.
certain things.
Like,
Mhm.
nobody was well, not nobody, but, like, a lot of my friends weren't allowed to watch, like, Zoe 101 or George Lopez,
Mhm.
like, and I was, like,
Mhm.
fucking up
Yeah.
late night watching George Lopez and, like, all the sick jokes that were in that, but that was more like an adult show, I think, than
Yeah. I'm like, I gotta go because Nick at Night starts at 9 PM
yes.
sharp."
Literally. Yeah. And it's just yeah, it's sad
Oops.
that the shows that, like, shaped us and brought us happiness were so
Mhm.
corrupt and probably still are, like,
Mhm. Yep, and
sad.
it's weird to I this was something that I looked up when we first started just to double and triple check, like, Dan Schneider's not still making shows at Nickelodeon, and it's weird because like, not that I'm really familiar with any of the shows that are, like, actively on Nickelodeon right now, but, like, the shows that are on Nickelodeon right now, I feel like are very different, like, very, very different. Like, what shows are even, like, actively on Nickelodeon right now? Yeah, so I found a list of all of the shows that are currently on Nickelodeon, and then also I went to the actual, like, schedule of what's on Nickelodeon, like, actively at this moment, and both of them are really funny. So on the entire list of shows, the only shows that are, like, actively on TV right now are all animated. Like, they don't really do any, like, live action. It looks like maybe The Loud House is one that's live people, but, like, they
Wow.
really only do animated shows now, but when you go to, like, the actual TV schedule of what's on today, it's literally SpongeBob, 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 SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Like, they literally just
Replays.
play SpongeBob all day, and then there's a show called Fairly Odd Parents: A New Wish, and I did some digging on that while you were, taking a brief intermission, and it's Cosmo and Wanda, but with a different kid, a little girl named
What?
Hazel. Yeah, don't
Who
like
the
that.
hell is Hazel?
There's yeah,
Also,
still
Cosmo and Wanda, that had weird shit in it too, if I'm recalling.
yeah, all of the an like, yeah,
Yeah.
all of the animated shows also had very,
Even SpongeBob, I mean, let's be real, but
yeah, SpongeBob had very inappropriate jokes,
you so
like,
many.
very inappropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paw Patrol basically all morning and then SpongeBob basically
Paw
all
Patrol.
night. Like, literally, I'm looking through the next, like, 4 days, and it's literally Nick at Night from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., and then it switches to Paw
What's
Patrol.
on at Nick at Night? Like, what are they
So
playing on
Nick at
that?
Night, the lineup right now is all Friends, like, from 9
Mhm.
p.m. to 1 a.m. is Friends, and then a show called Mom. I don't remember that show.
I don't either.
Um,
Hmm.
Mike and Molly. I remember that show, but I never watched it. Um, and then, like, on a regular weeknight, Nick at Night looks like it is
I also
yeah,
wish
still
that
just a
we
ton
could
of
hear
Friends.
from, like, Everybody Hates Chris. I used to Malcolm
Mhm.
in the Middle, like, I know
Mhm.
one of them, he, like, doesn't even remember recording the show because I forget what happened to him. The, like,
Oh,
main
with Malcolm in the Middle?
yeah.
Yeah, didn't he yeah,
Some
something
he had
happened with
some,
him
like
too, right?
yeah, but not, like
Frankie Muniz?
yes, I forget what happened though, but
Okay, this is weird because I do remember something bad happening with him or, like, something crazy, but all I can find is that he left acting in 2006 to pursue a NASCAR career, and I
he did,
don't
yeah,
think
but
that's not what I'm thinking of, though.
no. Um,
Oh, wait, despite widespread rumors about Frankie Muniz having severe memory issues, he recently clarified on an interview with Steve-O that these stories about his supposed shattered memory have been wildly exaggerated and fabricated. Okay, but with Steve-O, is that like a reliable source? Because doesn't he also have memory issues
yeah, he just said, "I
from
don't
being
really
knocked?
remember my time as Malcolm," but I wasn't
Yeah,
saying
that's
I don't
so weird.
remember everything. He suffered 9 concussions, but he attributes his poor memory to his busy schedule as a young actor, as well as the fact that he was just a teenager when the popular sitcom was airing, but, like, to not remember a lot
Yeah,
I know
that's
it's not
crazy.
everything, but, like, yeah, I don't know, it's crazy. I would love to hear from those shows too, like, what
Mhm,
I bet there was shit on those sets too from that long ago.
mhm. Yep. Wait, this thing that this, like, comment on an article or, like, in an article, it says that Bryan Cranston, also, like, the dad from Malcolm in the Middle, who was Walter White from Breaking
Yeah.
Bad, says he still calls Frankie Muniz, like, every other week just to,
Aw,
like, check on him.
that's sweet.
That's so cute. Yeah,
Yeah.
I, like, remember that show, but not like, I couldn't tell you, like, the storyline from one single episode, but I remember watching
No,
it.
it was so, like, random, I don't even know what it was
Mhm.
actually about.
Even, like, the George Lopez, the intro to that will never not, like,
I know, that's ingrained in my
put
memory.
me
But
yeah.
yeah, I don't know what the plot was, I don't
Mhm.
know I just remember oh, they, like, sexualized the fuck out of Carmen in
Yeah,
that
I remember yeah, and there
show.
was, like, weird episodes where, like, the cousin would come stay with them, and he would make, like, sex jokes to her, and I'm like, "You're literally related."
Yes.
Like, that's so
Yeah,
weird.
it was so weird.
And the grandma always had, like, inappropriate stories, like, talking about, like, banging people.
Mhm. Yeah. Pretty much every show is corrupt, so
Yeah, literally, we might as well just not watch anything ever.
Literally.
Sit in a dark, silent room 24 hours a day.
Literally.
That's what I'm starting to think I need, a break from
Honestly,
all
I would love
reality.
that. I think I
Yeah.
would love to be locked in a room for a week.
Super unfortunate that this is even, like, a topic that we can
I know.
talk about. Obviously, if more keeps coming out, we will talk about it.
If you haven't watched it, definitely
Mhm,
watch it because I think it's, like, important to see and, like, hear everything that was going on, especially if you watched these shows as a kid, like, I think it's important
mhm.
to just hear their stories and
Yeah, I think we owe it to them to hear
yeah.
their side of things for exactly like you said, being, like, such a huge part of our childhood for so long.
Mhm. Yep.
So, yeah. Well, we'll be back next week with something a little bit more lighthearted than this.
Yeah.
But if you need us in the meantime, come hang out with us on Instagram and make sure you join our texting list. The number for that will be in the episode description. Our merch is out, the blueprint, our Instagrams, everything that you need is below. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for hanging.
hanging.
If you aren't sick of us yet, jump over to the Socially Unfiltered Pod Instagram,
Check out the social media manager blueprint,
and everything else you'll need can be found in the show notes.
and we'll see you next Monday.